In the spring of 2014, my wife and I set out on a road trip from South Carolina to Tennessee. The previous year, our marriage was in trouble and we almost had a divorce. As a last resort, we went to see a marriage counselor and she ended up being someone who's really good at her job. She helped us sort out our differences and essentially saved our marriage. The trip in 2014 was dedicated to our new beginning. So we departed from South Carolina at noon. We've made a couple of stops along the way, one to take some photos at a tiny art museum and another for dinner. The time was 11 p.m. by the time we called it quits for the night. I was driving and saw a motel by the side of the road. It looked clean enough from the outside and we were dead tired. Monica wanted us to go to a nicer hotel about an hour away, but I had convinced her that both of us were too tired to be on the road for an additional hour. We pulled into the motel parking lot and there were 5 other cars parked outside. I told Monica to follow me to the check-in office even though she wanted to stay in the car. I can't explain why, but I felt uneasy in that parking lot. Leaving Monica alone in the car didn't seem like a good idea. In any event, we head toward the check-in office but then see no one inside. We get in, ring the bell on the counter, then a minute goes by and 2, but still no one comes to help us. After trying the bell on the counter once more with no luck, I decide we probably need a change of plans. I take my cell phone out of my pocket, then hand it over to Monica as I say, "Hey babe, why don't you call that hotel of yours and make sure they have a room for us? I don't think we're staying here tonight." Monica takes my phone, dials, but then says to me, "I think there's something wrong with your phone. It's got no signal. Give me a minute, let me try mine." As Monica pulls out her phone from her purse, I take my phone back and inspect it. Just as she said, the antenna bars were empty. A few seconds passes when Monica says to me in frustration, "Mine's doing the same thing. Let's just go." I tell her okay and we step out of the office. As soon as we get out, Monica lets out a short and panicky scream. I was going to ask her what was wrong when I realized the only car in the parking lot was ours. If you remember, I said that we saw 5 cars parked when we drove into the parking lot. If the cars had left, we would have heard people opening and closing the doors as it was that quiet outside. And what about the engine noise? How in the world would we not hear 5 cars pulling out of the parking lot that's clearly visible from the office? I took Monica's hand and we ran toward the car. When we got inside the car and facing the office, we saw that a person was inside looking at us intently. I asked Monica, "Hey, do you want to go back?" And she answered, "Are you crazy? Just drive us out of here." That's exactly what I did. And after an hour, we were at the hotel where Monica wanted to spend the night all alone. Nothing weird happened from that point of the trip, and our marriage is still going strong till this day. With that said, I can't explain why we didn't have cell reception in that motel. Because I tell ya, right after we left the motel, our cell phones worked perfectly fine again. There's also the matter of those 5 cars disappearing. I know what I saw initially. Those cars vanished into thin air. There's no way that we wouldn't have heard 5 cars driving off the parking lot. Then lastly, the clerk in the check-in office. Where the hell was he while we were ringing the bell and calling out for him? And why was he looking at us so intently once he appeared in the office? Jesus, the whole thing was just so spooky and unsettling. It's a good thing that Monica teared me a new one when I suggested that we should go back to the office. I shiver at the thought of what could have happened to us had we gone back and stayed overnight in that motel. Maybe we would have never checked out. I don't want to get your expectations too high, so right out of the gate, let me just tell you that my story isn't all that scary. This is just something weird that happened to me last year, so here goes nothing. I was on the road for about 3 hours and I had to cover another 600 miles to get to my destination. It was 2 in the morning, the weather was fair, and the road was pretty much empty. So I'm going 65 on a 55 stretch when out of nowhere, a car rockets past mine and I nearly soiled my pants. I could barely make out the shape of the car because it had no lights on. That's right, the idiot was going in the excess of 100 miles an hour with no lights on at 2 in the morning. Perfect if he wants to kill himself, but otherwise really dumb and reckless. Barely 5 minutes passes when the same car rocketed past mine again, but this time on the oncoming side of the road. The car's engine was screaming. It sounded more like an F1 racer rather than your average sedan. After seeing that, I was dreading at the thought of that car catching up with me again on my side of the road. Sadly, I was right to be worried. Once again, it was as if the car had appeared out of nowhere. I had no time to react, but to just watch it happen. This time, it sideswiped my car and it disappeared into the darkness of the night, and all the while, I had lost control of my vehicle and nearly collided with a tree. When it was all said and done, my car was in a ditch and stuck in the mud. As for me, I was fine physically, but mentally I was completely shaken. I called the police, but it took 40 minutes for them to arrive at the scene. You have no idea how scared I was while waiting for the cops. I thought for sure the car was going to come back to finish me off. Thankfully, that didn't happen. As you might have expected, the driver of the car got away scot-free. Unfortunately for me, I had to shell out $300 for the tow and another $800 to repair the suspension. We all know there are plenty of crazies out on the road, but the person in the screamer set a whole new bar for the idiot drivers out there. The time was around 9 p.m. and I was driving home from my office. I normally get off work at around 4, but on that day, I had some important documents to go over for the next day. It takes me about an hour and 20 minutes to get home. It's quite the drive to make every day just to get to work and come home. My family and I, we used to live in a neighborhood only 10 minutes away from my office. But my boy grew up, had to attend school, and so we moved into a neighborhood with a private school nearby. Oh yeah, the sacrifices we make for our children. In any event, half an hour into the drive, I see a woman hitchhiking by the side of the road. I don't know if this is a common occurrence for others, but I never once saw someone hitchhike. Hitchhiking is just something that you see in films. At least for me, that's how it was. Anyhow, I guess it's not gentlemanlike to not help a woman in that situation. But for a moment there, I just didn't feel comfortable having a stranger in my car. Woman or not, if I don't know you, then I can't feel comfortable with you in such cramped space. However, the feeling was quickly overshadowed by guilt. I turned the car around and went back to pick up the hitchhiking lady. I made a U-turn when I saw the lady. I pulled the car over right next to her, opened the window, then told her I'd give her a ride. She opened the door and sat in the passenger seat. I told her, I can drive you as far as my destination. That's about an hour south from here. So, where can I take you? Awkward silence filled the car as she just sat there and said nothing. Actually, forget answering my question. I mean, she didn't even acknowledge me. A minute went by in silence when I said, okay, if you're not gonna tell me where you need to be, then you can either get off or at least point me in the direction you want me to drive. A few seconds ticked by when she reluctantly pointed straight forward. So I said to her, I'm gonna drive now, but I need you to secure the seatbelt on before I do. I waited, but she wouldn't do it. I wasn't about to reach across her body to help her with the seatbelt, and by that point, I just wanted her out of my car as soon as possible. Thus, I began driving the car toward the direction I was originally headed to. We drove on the same road for the next 10 minutes, and within that time, I tried to get her to talk without success. The next 20 minutes, I didn't say anything to her and kept driving. I figured once we arrive in my town, I'm gonna take her to the police station and let them take care of her. Sometime later, we were about 15 minutes away from my home when my passenger suddenly gestured for me to stop the car. I did. I pulled the car over on the shoulder of the road and the woman jumped out as soon as the car came to a halt. I got out of the car and shouted at her, "Hey, come back! There's nothing here! I can get someone to help you! Come back!" She wouldn't listen. She ran into the woods and disappeared soon after. I called the police from that location and waited until they arrived. I told them about the woman, they wrote down my information, then told me that I could leave. Before leaving, I asked one of the officers for his contact information so I could ask for an update. He gave me his number and I left the premises. It wasn't until a week later when I got a call from the police officer. I had called him earlier in the week, but he didn't have any information at that point in time. In any case, first, he tells me there's no update, but then I can sense that he's holding back something. Instead of hanging up the phone, he's staying on the other line silently. I said to him, "Listen, officer, I don't know what you found out about the woman, but no matter how small and insignificant the information may be, I'd appreciate it if you fill me in on it." Another 15-20 seconds went by in silence before he said, "The thing is, I'm new in town. I don't have much knowledge of your town, but on that night when you called about that lady, my partner told me there was likely another call for the lady in white. Now, I didn't know what he meant by that at the time, but later I found out there were literally over 100 reports of her sighting on the stretch of the road. What you have to know is that no one lives in that area. There's nothing there. Previous attempts to find her yielded nothing. They haven't even found a hint of any person living in the forest. My suggestion is for you to never stop for anyone on that stretch of the road. I can't tell you who or what she is since we never found her, but I don't believe I need to explain to you why you may want to avoid her." He said those words and promptly hung up the phone. Needless to say, I was dumbfounded by the whole revelation. I was new in town as well. My family and we had resided there for only 8 months when that happened. That was 7 years ago, and I still reside in the same town, same house, and drive on the same stretch of the road every day to get to and from work. I have seen the lady in white hitchhike countless of times after that, but I don't stop for her any longer. The first time was the last time. I still remember the look on her face. She was facing forward and refused to look at me, but I could still see the sadness on her face and sense the misery from her general demeanor. I wish I could help her somehow, but I don't know how. I just hope she finds peace somehow. I really hope she'll one day find a reason to stop wandering on that road. Two years ago, on my 19th birthday, I was on the road driving a cargo van to a destination 12 hours away instead of celebrating my birthday. Long story short, my mom kicked me out of the house when I turned 15. She had a new boyfriend and he didn't want me around. I've been on my own ever since. The last birthday I remember are my 5th and 6th birthday. Dad passed away before I turned 7, and I didn't have much of life after that. After Dad's passing, Mom started bringing her boyfriends home. Some stuck around a while and some didn't. I got beat up a lot by most of them. The scumbags tend to take advantage of the desperate and vulnerable single mothers. It was the same deal with my mom. With that said, I don't really blame her for it. She couldn't find the jobs that could keep us afloat. The only choice she had was to get the occasional handouts from the scumbags she went out with. That's how we survived. With time, Mom changed. If you associate with scumbags long enough, you tend to become one yourself. Hence, she kicked out her own son and chose her own survival. But again, I don't blame her or hate her for that. I honestly feel pity for her. And yeah, that's why I was on the road on my 19th birthday. It's hard making a living being out in the world on your own. Most people can fall back on their parents or siblings in difficult times, but not me. I don't have such luxury. If there's work, I take it, no matter how tired I am and regardless of the date. That being said, the delivery had to be made by 9 in the morning. It was around 2 a.m. and I was roughly 5 to 6 hours away from my destination. That's when I saw a truck pulled over by the side of the road. I'm not a trucker, not yet, but those of us in the long-distance haul business don't hesitate to help other truckers who are stranded, especially not on roads like the one I was driving on. You'd have to wait sometimes a full day for help to arrive in remote places like that. Therefore, I pulled my van right behind the truck to see if I could help with anything. I got out of the van and proceeded to walk toward the truck's driver's side window. Strangely, there was no one inside. I inspected the nearby area for a few seconds and then I was walking back to my van when I heard someone whimper in the back of the truck. I looked around again to see if there was anyone nearby, then I walked toward the back of the truck. I hesitated for a second whether I should open the cargo door. If this is mob related and I get involved, then surely I would disappear tomorrow. I had two different voices fighting in my head. One told me to drive away right now, and the other told me that I should do the right thing and check the cargo to see if someone needs my help. The latter won out. I opened the door and found 6 people inside. 2 were young boys and 4 were teenage girls. They were barely clothed and thus shaking from the cold breeze of the night. Then again, I don't think it was just that. I think they were shaking out of fear. I could literally see the horror in their eyes. I said to them, "I'm not here to hurt you. I just found this truck parked by the side of the road and my intention was to help. The driver's not around, so I'm only going to ask one question and I'm going to ask it only once. Are you being taken against your will?" I waited for nearly half a minute, but the kids wouldn't answer. I could no longer wait. My life was on the line as well. I turned around to leave, and that's when a girl said to me, "Yes, we need your help. You need to get us out of here." Right away, I told them to get out of the truck, and then I ran toward the back of my van. I had to dump half of the cargo to make room for the kids, since only 2 of them could fit up front. I didn't even check what I was throwing out. I just grabbed anything that I could reach and dumped without hesitation. After that, I put the 4 older kids in the back of the van and the 2 younger ones at the front. I then told them to wait in the van and proceeded to puncture the tires of the truck with my knife. After the front 2 tires were done for, I returned to the van and we hauled ass out of there. I called the police and they met me halfway to the town their station was located at. The kids were fed and allowed to rest for a while. In the meantime, the eldest girl was interviewed by the police and I was at the station while all that happened. I learned in the morning that the kids were abducted and were being taken to likely somewhere where they would never be found again. 3 of the kids were originally taken off the streets. They were homeless. The other 3 were returning home after school when they were taken against their will. Apparently, I got to them after about an hour the truck had broken down. The kids with homes to return to had their phone calls with their parents, and the other 3 were waiting for someone from the government to pick them up. They were going to be helped. As for me, I was handed over to someone who looked very important. He refused to tell me where he worked or what he did. He said that I only needed to know that he was there to help. I was told that my van would be taken care of, whatever that means. Then I was taken to Moscow and put in a temporary home. Today, I still work in the same auto repair shop the agent had put me to work at when I first arrived in Moscow. That was 2 years ago. Back then, I was given some money, a number to reach in case of an emergency. Then I was left to live my life. Things have been pretty good so far. I'm glad to have helped those kids. If it wasn't for the brave girl who responded to me that night, I'd probably be living with a terrible guilt in me. I thank her for that. There are some terrible people in this world, but still many who are good. I'm one of them, I like to think, and the agent who helped me is another. In spite of what happened, I still have hope for our world. Hey guys, Dennis here. So I haven't posted for about a week now. I do apologize for that, but I've been busy writing scripts for the new types of videos I've got planned for this channel. It's a little tricky due to the fact that you can't do too gruesome or shocking, since those types of contents can pretty much get a channel banned. But it is what it is and I'm managing. Also, I found 2 more subscriber submitted stories that have been sent back in July and September. Those are truly the last subscriber submitted stories I'll be reading on this channel. After that, it's going to be like the last 2 stories I've read on this video. Instead of the 2 people like in the past, now I've got 5 guys working on finding stories from the non-English speaking European countries. They find the stories, translate them, and I pay them accordingly. So yeah, I'll be telling those stories starting from the next video mixed with the sub-stories. Also, I've got one Asian scary stories video coming up soon and another one that's somewhat different from the usual videos I do on this channel. Let's see how you guys enjoy that video or not, and we'll proceed from there. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.